Welcome to the Acton Memorial Library Show. This show is brought to you by the Acton Memorial Library. I'm Danielle, Savin, the director of the library, and I'm here with Clare and Carolyn. Would you like to introduce yourself, Clare?
Sure. Hi, my name is Clare Seaton. I am a librarian at Acton Memorial Library.
And hi, I'm Carolyn Lombardo. I work in the circulation department at the Acton Memorial Library.
So we're here today to talk to you about one of the things we all love, libraries. This June marks the 130th anniversary of the Acton Memorial Library first opening to the public. We are going to tell you about Acton Memorial Library's history in a future episode, but today we would like to talk about the general history of libraries.
Yeah, and we did research in a couple of spots. We went on to the Britannica Encyclopedia online, and we also went to one of Acton Memorial Library's e-resources, which is the Gale Encyclopedia. And we pulled information from those and kind of went through it and made a very truncated kind of history of libraries, which we're going to share.
So libraries have existed for centuries because someone needed to keep records of what was going on. In some of the research we did, we found that a temple in the Babylonian town of Nippur, dating from the first half of the 3rd millennium BC, was found to have a number of rooms filled with clay tablets, suggesting a well-stocked archive or library.
So that's a super early example. So when it says the 3rd millennium BC, is that like 3,000 years BC?
I think so.
I think so too.
Or
Super
it's not
ancient.
3 million years.
No.
See, that would be too hard, I think, to keep track of. Yeah.
And I think that might be before humans existed. So
There you go. Then I don't think the dinosaurs were keeping clay tablets in their records, but maybe they were, and we
that
just
could be a future episode.
We'll do some research on that.
Okay, so let's see. Then libraries have quite a history, and sometimes it was hard to keep libraries afloat. And in fact, sometimes libraries were actually sabotaged as a way of controlling information. So if a government was taken over by another government, then records would be purged or lost. So for example, in ancient China, the Emperor Shi Huangdi ordered that all the historic records other than his dynasty, the Qin dynasty, be destroyed so that history would be seen to begin with his dynasty. So that's just interesting about how kind of the control of information can impact history, I think.
And still today, libraries really want to make sure folks have access to all the information that we have. This is one of the reasons why we exist, is to collect the information and also make it available to all of you.
That's right.
I also found it interesting that a lot of the records, were written on parchment paper. It didn't last, that's for sure. It was perishable. So records had to keep getting copied over, and people were hired to do that.
Yeah,
it's interesting because everything had to be done by hand back then. So the printing press hadn't been invented yet. And today, the way we still have access so much information at our fingertips, and you can just click 2 buttons on your mouse or your device and copy information and send it to your friend or quote it in a paper you're writing. It's much less time consuming than it would have been way back then.
very much. I thought it was interesting the time when you were talking about when it was ancient Greece. And one of the purposes of those texts at that time, we learned, was to record and also organize the philosophical schools. So like Aristotle and so on. So the most famous collection we read was the school founded by Aristotle and organized by him with the intention of facilitating scientific research. So that's quite a history for like a research institution.
So then during the Roman Empire, there were many private libraries, and it had become fashionable to have a library in your home. Excavations of private homes uncovered the remains of bookcases. I'm sure you guys have private libraries at home. I still think it's fashionable, at least for a librarian, to have a library in her home, but I'm sure plenty of our folks listening have libraries at home. So I'm glad that's still in fashion. Even Julius Caesar had plans for a public library, but he died before his plans were realized. 5 years later, a public library was built. I'm not going to try to pronounce that. Latin, I suppose that is.
I put it in there because I thought maybe Claire. Claire, you're really good with things like this.
Oh, no. I'll fake it. It says that describing the foundation of that library, the one that was inspired by Julius Caesar but didn't happen until after he died, this guy or girl, but I think it's probably a guy, coined a phrase that still has relevance to libraries today. It says, ingenia hominem rem publicum fecit, I'm not sure, which translates to, he made men's talents a public possession. He made men's talents a public possession. That's what the library did. I have an exception to it saying men's talents, although at the time probably that's what it was, but behind every great man, etc. But that's still the case, that it makes, all of our achievement accessible to everyone.
Yes, and part of it being a public library means that, well, in Acton, for instance, it's funded through your taxes, but it gives everyone access to that material. So if you did not previously, if you didn't have a private library, you wouldn't be able to collect some of these writings. You wouldn't know what people are writing about. But now that there's a place that the public can go, that the public has a shared ownership and interest in, they can go and seek information. And that's still what happens today, whether it's information for a report you're writing or just you want to read some fun recreational reading during maybe a time when you're stressed, like right now. So it's great that these works are now being collected and made accessible to folks.
That's right. And whenever I hear someone describe the function of a library like you just did, Danielle, it makes me, I don't know, I just love libraries so much, and I can't believe that we have an institution like this where we literally pool our resources and at a very low cost get this high value because we're sharing things together. It's just such an incredible, beautiful thing for humans to do, I think.
Yeah, and today in Acton, on average, we see over 700 people come into the library every day. So
it's amazing.
That's a lot of people. I wouldn't come across 700 people every day in anything else I do in my life. So it's just, we're happy to exist and be able to serve our public with the information that they're looking for.
Yeah, it's a hub and it's a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
All right, let's see. Okay. So then switching over to in the Islamic world, the libraries would contain sacred texts. So for instance, the teachings of Muhammad, and they were stored in mosques in Jerusalem and Damascus, Baghdad, Cairo, and Alexandria. So then was more religious, it seems like, or spiritual collections.
In Europe, as monasteries were forming, books were essential to spiritual life. Someone was assigned to take inventory. Books were lent to other monasteries and even to the secular public. Monastery students returning to libraries expanded content by adding lecture notes on Aristotle and Plato. Religion was the center of life back then. So to me, it makes sense that these were the places where manuscripts and texts were being stored. And that's also another place where the manuscripts would be preserved by copying them.
Right. Monks, right?
Yes.
Right. And sometimes they were very beautiful. I've seen images with even gold on them and stuff and little illustrations.
I think it's possible that the Boston Public Library in their rare book room might have some illuminated manuscripts. I haven't seen them. Just what I've heard. I've never had the chance to visit Boston Public Library's rare book room, but I know that's where plenty of folks go to do research. And I definitely think they have a few early works like that.
I bet they have some really cool stuff from local history as well.
Yes.
Is it open to the public, do you know?
Yeah, it's probably by appointment only, though, because they do likely limit how many people are in there at a certain time. And also, if you make an appointment, they would be able to pull the text you're looking for ahead of time and have it all ready for you. Although, unfortunately, it's closed to the public right now, as most organizations and businesses are, because we are recording this during the COVID-19 pandemic. In case folks are listening to this in the future, right now.
People of the future.
People of the future might be listening to this. They might be keeping it for records in libraries that we don't even know how they'll exist yet. But so right now we're each recording this from our own home on a video conference call in order to give some information about the history of libraries.
From our fancy home studios. Yeah, May 2nd, 2020. All right, let's see. So then there were more church libraries, parish libraries attached to churches. I get the sense that those ones are more local. And then the Vatican Library was founded in the 15th century. And as you said, all of the materials there were preserved by copying. Oh, okay. Can I share this next thing? The beginning of shelving as we know it. In Europe, private libraries of powerful collectors got so large that a new way to house books had to be created. Because in the past, there were book bays or books were chained, but because the libraries were growing, they first instituted cases in the wall with spines out. So that was kind of interesting, as we use today.
Although they didn't have the systems in place that we use today. We can talk about that. Many public libraries use the Dewey Decimal System to organize their nonfiction books. Mm-hmm. And that's something that was not invented until, I believe, the late 1800s. Mm-hmm. It may have come in the early 1900s, but it definitely did not get spread to many libraries until, I would say, the early 1900s. And so Melville Dewey came up with a way to sort information. Think about all the information you have in the world, and he came up with 10 classes to sort the information in. And that's something we still use today. We've adapted it, obviously. He did not have technology like we have. So as time goes on, the folks at OCLC are the ones who still work with the Dewey Decimal System. So they will come up with some more categories that fit into current breakdown of the Dewey Decimal System. Interestingly enough, another classification system was created by a librarian who worked here in Massachusetts. Charles Cutter was a librarian at the Boston Athenaeum, and he came up with another classification system. It may have been around the same time that Dewey was coming up with his, but there was obviously less ways to communicate with people, so things hadn't gotten widespread yet. But so Charles Cutter came up with another classification system. I can't tell you how much that much about it, but we actually still use pieces of it, and we assign call numbers to books today. And in the Boston Athenaeum, they actually still have books dating back to like at least the 1800s that were cataloged under his system, and they still have some of them. So I think that's very cool that they've preserved his.
That is interesting.
An active use of his classification system.
Just before, a precursor to that system that we use now, the Dewey system, there was a guy in Italy who revolutionized library administration. Let's see, he was working for the British Museum, and he was kind of the first known person to declare that the books in a library should match declared objectives, and that what those objectives should be in the case of a national library, which is kind of interesting because our library has a mission, certainly, and we have guiding principles that dictate or help guide us in what we should collect, what we should put on the shelves, where we should put the resources of the public. So this guy was kind of saying we need to be very conscious about this and thoughtful and have principles. He also perceived the importance of a good catalog, and he created a code of rules for catalogers, which I know nothing about. But still, this guy did that, which is interesting.
Well, someone has to make the rules to kind of keep some order or amount around things, and that's generally what catalogers were doing. They were making materials easier to find by coming up with some of those rules to sort the books and information. So if you come to the library and you can't find a book, that's why we always want you to come and ask us for help, because we know that the information is organized, but that doesn't mean that everyone understands how it's organized. So You should always ask a librarian if you can't find something. And we usually need to refer to the computer, but then can bring you to the stacks and help you find the item you're looking for.
That's right. So then should we move to the history of libraries in the United States?
Yes.
All right.
So I think one of the big principles about democracy is your citizens need access to information in order to vote with the information at hand. And that's one big reason why we need to continue to have libraries to exist in this country. They started as private book collections owned by educated members, such as doctors and ministers of early American colonies. And again, because there was no system of classifying the books to maintain them, they would preserve them and probably come up with some sort of local system to keep the books in order. And eventually, as people realized the importance of libraries and how they're helpful to the public, they began funding libraries through taxes. And some of the first libraries in the United States were the Boston Public Library, the New York Society Library, and the Library Company of Philadelphia, which Benjamin Franklin was a member. Was he the founder, or was he just a member?
I believe he was a member of that.
Okay. It seems like he did a lot of things. I guess I kind of thought maybe he would
totally
have founded it as well.
He had his hand in a lot of places, for sure. I wanted to add to what you said, Danielle, about democracy and how having that access to all of that information is so important to it. That's so, so true. And I'd like to highlight that public libraries are one of the only places where it really is equitable, because schools are going to be more or less funded. People are going to have all different circumstances in all areas, but public libraries are open to everyone, absolutely everyone. And we provide service as part of our mission to everyone who comes through the door, as long as they're still allowing it to be a safe and comfortable place for other people. But that's something that I really believe in and think is really important to our democracy, that equal access.
Yes, definitely. We want to welcome all sorts of folks in the library. We want to be able to help you find your information. We want to be able to have a space for you to come and do your work or just relax with a good book.
Use the Wi-Fi, etc.
Yes.
That's right. Okay. There was another kind of library early on, circulating libraries. Those were located in print shops and bookstores, and people could rent the books. And they would have like a lot of really current books. I get the sense kind of popular books. So that reminded me of like a Redbox type of a model. And then the American Library Association, which is a great resource for librarians often, and organization, was established in 1876 to promote the use of libraries. And one of its most well-known leaders was Melville Dewey.
Yes, and we talked a little bit about how Melville Dewey had created the Dewey Decimal System, and that helped make books easier to find once they were classified.
That's right. And then, go on. Sorry.
Oh, one thing I think that was interesting, a lot of early libraries, even though they were open to the public, the stacks weren't accessible to the public. So the way you could come in today and just browse, what do I want to read? I'm not really sure what I'm in the mood for, or did this author write another book? Let me see. Let me look on the shelf and see if my favorite author has a new book or something. So back then, the stacks were not open to the public. And part of that reasoning would be because books were so expensive, and I guess they felt like if they left them out, they might get damaged or things like that. But so you would come in and speak to the librarian and tell the librarian what book you were looking for. The librarian would get it off the shelf for you. Nowadays, we would only really do that with a real rare collection. In Acton Memorial Library, we do have some local history collections that you can ask the librarian for help, and we'll get those items for you. But it was a big change to go from closed stacks, what we call them, to open stacks.
Yeah.
I don't remember the date, but certainly when Acton Memorial Library started, it was closed stacks. And in our next episode, I'll have the date for you for when the stacks became open to the public.
Interesting how you couldn't browse back then, because that's such a part of being in the library, at least for me.
Yeah,
I love to browse through all the different areas and find things that I never would have found. So
yeah, it's a nice way to discover.
It is.
Yeah.
Some of my favorite authors I found that way, just browsing the shelves. So I can imagine a lot of people maybe didn't use the library.
I wonder. And I wonder if it was open to everyone.
So I'd say more towards, let's say, the late 1800s, early 1900s. Libraries would make a print catalog. So you could sort through that catalog, figure out what you want to look for. But every time they bought a new book, the catalog that was printed was no longer accurate, because now there was another book in the collection that's not represented in the catalog. Yeah. Today, when we buy a new book and we put in our catalog, it's fairly instantaneous. It's possible it might take overnight to load, but you'll see pretty much as soon as we insert a new book into the catalog, it shows up for folks who are searching the catalog.
I will say, as long as the technology is up and running, the computer is such an incredible advancement for catalogs. Like, it's so incredible to be able to have it all there and search by keywords. And in the past, in the card catalog, you'd have to have multiple cards for the same item so that you could access it by like the author or the title or the subject. And now all of that, like, the technology is just a perfect way to access that information and find that item.
So I didn't work in a library during the time of card catalogs, but I did use them as a student growing up.
Same.
But so every time you bought a new book for your library, you would have at least 3 cards. The book might have multiple subjects, so there would be a card for each additional subject. You would have to take those cards, go over to your card catalog, pull out the drawer, and file it where it was supposed to be. Yeah. So, that could, I don't know, depending on how many books your library bought a year, that could be a really long, that could take a really long time.
Do you guys remember thumbing through those? Flipping?
Yes. I remember you could, if you were doing a real intense search, you might take the drawer out, the little wooden thing to press the draw, and then you can do your search.
That's
I
right.
remember that. Oh gosh.
Very different. If you haven't experienced it, it's very different. But I believe I don't know that much about early databases and early computers, but it was a way of organizing information that I think essentially behind the scenes computers are kind of still doing the same thing, going through their algorithms and things like that to pull and give you hits for what you're looking for.
Right. I love those old card catalogs just as a piece of furniture. They're kind of beautiful.
Oh yeah. I can still hear the sound of the drawer coming out. I can still hear it, and I can remember how it felt. It was heavy.
And the smell.
Yeah. Funny.
Oh, Carnegie. Let's talk about Carnegie.
Yeah. Want to go ahead, Clare?
Yeah, sure. A really wealthy guy and a philanthropist who really believed in public libraries. So he gave millions of dollars to the building of libraries around the country, including in small towns, which I think is really cool. It wasn't just showboat libraries in big cities, although he did that as well. But he wanted to make sure that libraries were available to everyone, regardless of their social class, their income, which is really cool and quite a legacy. And I think it's neat, too, that then during the Depression, when budgets get crunched, I just heard about a bunch of school librarians getting laid off in a town where one of my friends lives, and it's just a shame. The ones who were there got reassigned, and they're not going to hire any. And that's because the budget is tight because of everything that's going on. And that happens often. Unfortunately, we really have to advocate against it because it's in those times like this, or like the Great Depression or the recessions, when the kind of relatively small investment in a library has such a high return for people because they might need a place to use, and not right now because we can't go to the library, but people might need a place to use Wi-Fi or to get help in their job search or to use books because they're not buying books, or et cetera, et cetera. It's really a time when sharing is most relevant, when times are tight, I think.
Yeah, so during tough economic times, you usually will see more folks going into the library to use those shared resources. And I think that libraries still do collect audio and video. So we have DVDs, we have audiobooks on CD, things like that. So even though folks subscribe to streaming services and things like that, if they felt like they didn't want to do that anymore, they could still come to the library for some of their recreational needs during these times as well.
That's right. We have a page on our website, which is e-resources, to Danielle's point, and there's a big long list of all different kinds of really awesome resources there, like the encyclopedias, but there's also a streaming video service called Canopy, and then we have Hoopla and Overdrive, which both have ebooks and audiobooks and videos and so much good stuff. And we are available to help you in the public to sign up for those resources. You can call and leave a message or reach out to us on Facebook or however you want to do. We'll help you out.
Yes, so if you go to our website, www.actonmemoriallibrary.org, you can see a list of these resources. You can also look for us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and we do have an email newsletter you could sign up for as well, and you can find links to all those on our website.
And we're on YouTube now as well, Acton Memorial
Library.
Yes, we
have started creating some videos during our closure at this time.
So anyway, during the Great Depression, even though the country was devastated, libraries survived because people continued to be enthusiastic about them and wanted to put the very limited resources, some of them, into libraries. So that's a really cool thing and a good model.
Public libraries gained more support in the years leading up to World War II in response to the rise of fascism in Germany. Americans were horrified at the Nazi practice of burning books. This practice went against the ideals of American democracy, which stressed that information and education should be available to all. Although Americans did not practice book burning, they did at times restrict access to libraries and information to other Americans. For example, African Americans were once barred from entering some public libraries. Some individuals and organizations have also attempted to censor or ban books from circulation, believing that these books contain harmful ideas. As librarians, again, we want to make sure information is available to everyone. And intellectual freedom is a cornerstone of this profession. We don't believe in banning access to information. Support for libraries continued to grow after World War II, and in 1956, the Library Services Act was passed to provide funding for public libraries in rural areas. Another act, the Library Services and Construction Act, was implemented in 1964. This act provided government assistance to improve libraries.
And then another kind of important part of library history is that libraries have really evolved as society has evolved. So while the mission has stayed very much the same of providing access to information and entertainment and so forth to everyone, with the advent of computers and these other digital technologies, libraries have embraced that and made it a part of what we offer. And as well, there's always the very important, not as relevant right now, but the library as a incredible public space that's open to everyone. So that's something that I think may have become more of a central offering of the library. We have, at Acton Memorial Library, we have study rooms that people can use. We have a conference room that can be used. We have a meeting room that people can sign up and use. So, and then people just come to the library to meet. People have play dates there. That's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And of course, the programs that we offer. That's another part of how I feel like libraries have evolved. They're really about meeting the needs of the community in any way that we can. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. So again, unfortunately, we have to be closed during this time, but if you need any help with anything, if you have any questions for us, you can reach out to us. You can call 978-929-6543 and leave us a message. A staff member will get back to you. You can also email us at reference@actonma.gov. We'll respond to you that way. And so now I'd like to ask Clare and Carolyn, what sorts of books are you reading or things are you watching that perhaps you got through the library during the time?
Well, I'm doing with my daughter a book club, and we're using a book from Hoopla, the service Hoopla, because Hoopla is unique in that multiple copies of the same book can be checked out. And so she and a group of peers all checked out the book Hello Universe and have been reading it. They're meeting twice a week over a Zoom just like this and discussing it, and I'm reading it along with them and creating discussion questions for them. So that's very cool. That's from the kids section. And then I can't remember the title of the book that I've just been reading. It's so good though, I'm going to go grab it. Sorry, but Carolyn, you go ahead. I'll be right back.
Well, I recently watched on Hoopla, and we were talking the other day about this, a really good movie, The Professor and the Madman, it was called. And it's based on a book written in 1998. It's about the creation and the founding of the Oxford English Dictionary in the mid-19th century. It's about a professor who begins work on compiling words for the dictionary, and he befriends a doctor who's actually schizophrenic, and he's in jail for murdering somebody. They somehow get together and write the dictionary, the Oxford English Dictionary. It was just fascinating how it came to be, and it was really an amazing feat.
And the Oxford English Dictionary, that's the most complete dictionary, I think?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, and there were just volumes and volumes of it when it started. I mean, it was just crazy. But Mel Gibson's in it. Sean Penn's in it, and it's and Natalie Dormer. I don't know if you know her. She's a British actress. She was in the Showtime show The Tudors. I think it was a number of years ago. Yeah, she played Anne Boleyn.
Oh.
Yeah, she's very good, and she's in this as well, and it's well worth it. So, and I got that on Hoopla. Yeah, it was great. Anyway, go ahead, Claire. What was the book that?
This is the book.
Yeah.
I just finished it. It was for my book club, The Miniature Wife and Other Stories. It's really good. It's by Manuel Gonzalez, and the Miniature Wife, they're kind of surreal. It's a little like George Saunders stories, really well written, and they're like brain twisting a little bit. So the Miniature Wife, this guy like works in a place, and it's all short stories. They're all really different, but they have these things in common. In the Miniature Wife, this guy works at a place where they miniaturize things by different processes, and he like accidentally miniaturizes his wife. Ooh, this is nice. So he makes her a little dollhouse, but she's so furious at him, she becomes like, she tries, well, I don't want to spoil it in case anyone wants to read it, but she becomes very dangerous.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, so I really like that book, and one day I'll return it and then someone else can check it out. How about you, Danielle?
Well, I checked out a book of poetry by Adrienne Rich, so I was reading that a little bit, and I haven't had time to do that much other reading actually. And I think viewing wise, I have been viewing the TV show Veep, which
Oh, yeah.
I did not get through a library resource. I heard that HBO was offering some free series at this time, and I was like, well, now's the time for me to catch up. So
yeah.
I actually finished watching that series last night. And
That's
that was,
That's a good show. People love that show.
It's so
Yeah,
fun.
I haven't seen it. Mhm.
so I need to now look maybe at some of our library resources so I can see what else I should be watching.
You guys, are you ready for some trivia?
Yes,
Okay.
trivia about what we talked about today.
Yeah.
Okay.
At least
Okay.
it's about libraries.
Okay.
Okay. All right. In ancient Egypt, all ships visiting the city of Alexandria were obliged to blank their books. A, throw them in the ocean. B, burn them. C, surrender them. Or D, register them. Do you want to hear the choices again?
Yeah.
Okay. In ancient Egypt, all ships visiting the city of Alexandria were obliged to blank their books. Remember Alexandria? A, throw them in the ocean. B, burn them. C, surrender them. Or D, register them.
I'm going to guess C.
Okay. How about you?
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with C also.
Oh, I should have a bell or something. Ding, ding,
Oh.
ding. That's correct. Yeah. They had to surrender their books to the Library of Alexandria to be copied. Very good.
Cool.
All right.
Yeah.
Here's the next one. What book holds the record for being the book most often stolen from public libraries? Is it A, How to Steal for Dummies, B, the Guinness Book of World Records, C, the Bible, or D, Steal This Book by Abby Hoffman?
I'm going to go with C again.
Okay, how about you, Carolyn?
I'm going to go with A. But I think
How to
I'm
Steal
wrong.
for Dummies?
Yeah.
The actual answer is the Guinness Book of World Records.
Oh,
And I can
was
believe it
say that.
because the kids, they always want that book so much. And we even have like a reference copy of it which stays in
wow.
the library. Popular and it's never there.
Mhm.
And they get beat up.
Wow.
Okay,
But it's never there because it's checked out in our library, not because
Correct.
anybody's...
that's right. The fine citizens of Acton did not steal that book. All right, there's a library that is built on the border of two countries. Exiting the library through the opposite entrance requires one to report to the country's customs thereafter. Are the countries A, England and Ireland, B, North Korea and South Korea, C, US and Canada, or D, India and Pakistan?
I actually know this one, but I'm
Okay.
I'm going to say C, but now I've answered C for all the questions. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have gone with C, but
Okay. So C,
So
and how about you?
Well, if Danielle says she really knows that one, I know if I choose another, I'm going to be wrong. So I'll have to go with C.
That is correct. Ding, ding, ding. It's
Yeah.
the U.S. Haskell Free Library, which is built on the U.S.-Canadian border. And did you hear the podcast, Danielle? Is that why you know about it?
possibly, yeah.
There was a
I don't
podcast
remember.
about like refugees who were meeting at that library because it was the only safe place where they could meet.
Yeah, I heard. Yeah, I definitely listened to that.
What type of building has been turned into the largest single-floor public library in the United States? Is it A, an elementary school, B, a roller rink laser tag play space, C, a Walmart, or D, a church?
Okay, I'm going with C again.
Okay.
I don't know this one at all, but I'm going to go with B because it's so weird.
I kind of want it to be B, but my guess is still C.
And it is C, correct, Danielle. But I think who would have known? So it's 124,500 square foot abandoned Walmart in McAllen, Texas, was converted into a library.
How did you know that, Danielle?
Well, I just know that Walmarts usually have a very large footprint, so that was a guess. That was but I can't imagine that would be so cool to walk into a library that is as big as
I
a
know.
Walmart.
Oh, yeah.
With all
I
those
could go there and
aisles.
not spend money, just check out books for free.
I want to
Mhm.
look it up and see what it
Yeah.
looks like. Okay, ready for another one?
Okay.
Okay. Oakland Library in California maintains a blank lending library of 3,500 blanks to lend out to the community. Is it A, games and toys, B, tools, C, baking and cooking items, or D, clothing?
D, you chose, Danielle?
I went, I differed from my C path and I went with D.
I'm going to go with C.
Baking and cooking items. I think
Yeah.
they'd all be great, but the actual
It's
answer
C,
is
right?
tools.
Wait, was it D?
It's actually, no, it was tools. It's
No.
B.
Tools. Okay.
B.
Tools.
I was wondering where they store that many. That's what my thought was. How do they store that many things? I don't know that much about that library system. Perhaps they have many branches and different
Yeah, I don't know.
branches. That's really interesting.
Yeah, it really is. Do you want to do another one?
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like I'm failing miserably here.
No. There's no way to. It's just
It's not
fun. It's a fun way
Yeah,
to
it's
do
not a
stuff.
test. It's just
It's
fun.
great.
Okay. One of the oldest public libraries in the country opened in 1790 in Franklin, Massachusetts, where residents circulated books donated by, ready? A. George Washington, B. Paul Revere, C. Thomas Paine, or D. Benjamin Franklin.
I'm gonna go with B, only because I know he lived in Massachusetts. Although it seems like it should be D because it's the town of Franklin. So, but I'm gonna go with Paul Revere.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with Paul Revere too.
I love it. It's actually Benjamin Franklin. So good noticing that Franklin, Massachusetts. It could have been any of them. Yeah, good guess. Okay, so Benjamin Franklin, the founding father, once started his own lending library in 1731 in Philadelphia called the Library Company, but that one required a subscription fee. But this one was just free, public library.
Yeah, I thought that earlier in our show we talked about
Yeah.
the history of libraries in the Americas, and I thought that I said something like, "Oh, I thought Ben Franklin would have been
I
associated with that."
know.
What was the name of it? He started the Library Company.
Yeah.
Yeah, correct. Okay, Carnegie funded several New York City libraries, and those buildings were often constructed with apartments on the top floor. What were those apartments for?
I know.
Okay. Carolyn, do you have a guess?
Whoa, I have no idea. There's no choices?
Nope. Go ahead, Danielle.
They were for library staff. Someone needed to tend to the coal, perhaps, that would keep the library heated in the winter. And I don't know what the title of that library staff member was, but it
That's
made the
exactly
commute
right.
really easy, I suppose.
It was the library custodian, they said. They had living quarters so they could keep shoveling coal into the furnaces at all hours of the day and night. So exactly right. And I actually remember hearing a podcast about a kid who grew up in one of those library, like their dad was the custodian. And so when they were little, then they were in the library at night in New York. Like they could run around
Wow.
with their siblings.
Can you imagine?
Do you want to do another one?
Yes.
Okay. The world's largest library in terms of catalog depth is the Library of Congress, which has blank million items. A, 16 million items. B, 67 million items. C, 168 million items. Or D, 640 million items. Again, it's 16, 67, 168, or 640.
I'm going to go with B, 67 million.
I'm going to go with C.
Ding, ding, ding. That's correct, Carolyn.
Whoa. I'm shocked.
It's like, so
I know.
I have no idea how I would begin
It's so
to approach
random,
that
yeah,
question. Even though they're such vastly different numbers, it's like, I don't know what the scope would be, but it's 168 million. And there's so many crazy facts about the Library of Congress. Like the smallest book is practically microscopic and like yards across. Anyway.
We could probably do a whole nother episode talking about file that away from the
Okay, one final trivia question, and it is about the books most checked out from the New York Public Library. And I have the top 10. So I just wonder if you can guess any of the items on the top 10 most checked out books from the New York Public Library throughout history.
Cat in the Hat.
That is number 2. Very good.
Okay, I
And
see.
I'll give you hints. Okay, one of them was very, very popular, and we have many copies of it in our children's section now. Still, it's a thick chapter book.
Harry Potter.
Correct.
And-
That's number
Yeah, I think
9.
so.
And then there's a self-help book that is, you think of maybe the 50s or the 60s.
How to Friends and Influence
That's
People.
exactly right. Number 8 was How to Win Friends and Influence People. And then there's the one with the pig and the spider.
Charlotte's Web.
Correct.
Charlotte's
That's
Web,
number
yep.
6. And then a really, really famous book that everyone reads maybe in junior high that's Southern.
To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yeah,
Is
I was going to say that.
5.
Yeah.
And then, let's see, we've got a bunch of them now. Number 10 is by someone who I believe lived in Massachusetts. It's a kid's book, and there's a museum dedicated to him in Western Mass.
The Very Hungry Caterpillar.
Correct. That's number 10.
wow.
Number 10 with 189,550 checkouts.
Wow.
Almost everything.
So what was number 1?
So number 1 is another kid's book, and it takes place in winter, and there's a red coat in it.
The Very Snowy Day. Or-
It's the the snowy day.
No, it's not very snowy. It's just snowy.
Just snowy.
Snowy Day.
By Ezra Jack Keats, the great classic. That's number 1. And it makes sense that a kid's book would be because it's a quick turnaround.
Oh, yeah.
And those children's, with the exception of Harry Potter, which I think was the most modern one we mentioned, those kids' books have been around for so long that many parents have probably passed the love of those books on to their children.
That's right. The other ones that we didn't say, I might as well just share, were Fahrenheit 451 was number 7. Where the Wild Things Are was number 4.
Oh, yeah.
1984, very interestingly, I was number 3.
That is very interesting.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
I wonder, like, if you could see a chart of over the years, like when the spikes were for some of these books, that'd be interesting too. And like you said, generations passing on the kids' books, I bet those come in waves too.
Yeah.
Good job, you guys. That was fun.
Thank you for putting that together.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
it was
that's good.
really fun to try them out on my family last night. All right.
Okay.
Well, how's Joey doing?
This is the pet check-in portion of the show. So my cat is named Joey, and he is currently sitting across from where I'm recording this. He's looking out the window at the sunny day.
Aw.
He's good, I think.
Good boy.
And I saw your cat before, Claire.
Yeah, wait. She's over here. She's looking out the window at birds, but I'm going to grab her. This is actually just 1/3 of my cats. But this is Mayflower.
Oh, it's beautiful.
So she came to visit us, or visit you during the show. She came to visit you during the show.
Oh, that's so cute. Look at her. You should take a picture.
She wishes that I didn't pick her up and that I would just leave her to sit and look out the window and chirp at the birds. But, you know, this is her job. She has to get picked up and hugged sometimes. She's a sweetheart.
I get it. Yeah. Oh.
So that's Mayflower. And then my other cats are Sweet Pea and Juju. 3 girl kitties. They're all really different, goofy cats. It's
Are they
really
all
nice.
black?
No, you know, she's that, what's that called? Tuxedo cat. And Sweet Pea is like all black and fuzzy. She's like your dog. You can't, when she's curled up, you can't make sense of what you're seeing.
I know, yeah.
Juju is like big, really big, and orange and white stripes. And she's the baby, but she's the biggest one. And she's a goof.
Aw.
Yeah.
And Carolyn, did your dog join us for the show as well?
She's been here the whole time. Yeah, she was sleeping and very quiet, so she was behaving very
What a
nicely.
good girl.
Yeah.
Hopefully we didn't put her to sleep by talking about libraries for
All
too
of our
long.
library facts. That's so funny.
So this was our first show, the first Acton Memorial Library show. I hope you enjoyed it. We seem to have enjoyed it, and
fun.
we'd like to bring you more of these in the future, so stay tuned. And for now, I'm Danielle Savin, the director of the Acton Memorial Library, along with
Clare, Seaton.
And Carolyn Lombardo.
and we just love libraries and like talking about them. So we will hopefully be back with another episode soon. In the meantime, check out our library's website at www.actonmemoriallibrary.org. In the meantime, if you'd like to get in touch with the library, you can visit us at www.actonmemoriallibrary.org. You can give us a call at 978-929-6543 and leave a voice message, or you can email us at reference@actonma.gov.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, thank you. This was fun.
Thank you for joining us. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.